Protesters swarmed outside this Brisbane restaurant in July. Inside, the Prime Minister at a dinner for the party faithful. A Greens councillor promoted it, and a Greens state MP was amongst the crowd. One of the rally's organisers was Reema Naji from the Justice for Palestine movement.
The traitors are all having dinners inside!
5 weeks later, she was announced as a candidate for the Greens.
And while millions cry out for peace, Labor wouldn't sanction Israel as it carries out a genocide.
In Sydney's Inner West last month, a Greens councillor promoted and spoke at a rally ahead of a Greens motion on investment in the Middle East.
People were kind of losing a little bit of their control and people felt unsafe, and we decided to leave at that point.
The Greens' vocal pro-Palestine stance has drawn criticism and claims the party has become more radical. Not so, says the party's co-founder Bob Brown. He was arrested in the 1980s protesting the damming of the Franklin River.
Every time you do that, you'll have somebody in politics or in the media pointing the finger at you and saying you're radical or you're extreme. No, you're not. You're speaking up for humanity. The Greens should be spread across the whole spectrum of issues because our job is to replace Labor and the Liberals and the National Party. It's no good just trying to keep them honest. That's a hopeless pursuit.
The Greens now hold more seats across Australia than ever before. And with that growth comes greater attention and scrutiny.
The Greens are going through growing pains at the moment, which makes them a very different party from the single issue outfit they were in their early days. All parties go through that process when they're wanting to shape up for the mainstream.
The Greens are making a concerted push in the lower house where they hold 4 seats. They want 5 more after the next election.
The Greens are now Australia's social democratic alternative. You've got the Liberals moving to the hard right, Labor is moving to the centre right, and the Greens are now the country's only social democratic alternative.
The growing sentiment within the Australian public right now, whether the people are voting for Greens or other minor parties or the Teal Independents, people want to see the duopoly broken up.
Greens leader Adam Bandt used a recent address to the National Press Club to promote his party's progressive ambitions to tax big multinationals, banks and supermarkets.
Invest that money in things that people actually need, like wiping student debt, affordable housing, expanding Medicare to include mental and dental health.
Ambitious goals that Bill Shorten labels populist and unrealistic.
The Greens can say whatever passes through their brain because they'll never, ever be in a position where they've got to actually implement all the promises that they're making.
But earlier this year, the Greens did gain traction on housing policy.
The Greens were incredibly effective earlier this year, Max Chandler-Mather, on policies designed to appeal to renters, which is vacant ground that the majors have left. That was an incredibly large gap that the Greens very successfully walked into.
The 5 million adult renters in this country will not forget Labor's betrayal.
Last week, the Greens combined with the Coalition to stymie one of the government's key commitments, housing policy.
I hope the Prime Minister stops bulldozing and starts negotiating because we need to take action on the housing and rental crisis now.
Why am I not surprised that they now work with the Coalition to stop 40,000 people a year being able to access home ownership? I mean, it's just consistent with their playbook, which is be anti-Labor 100% of the time.
In August, Greens MP Max Chandler-Mather addressed a CFMEU rally in Brisbane after the government introduced new laws to put the union into administration.
Labor has used these untested allegations as an excuse to attack an entire union.
There's been some very serious and concerning allegations, and the Greens have always taken an approach that The rule of law and the separation of powers are important in this country, and where serious allegations are made, then they should be investigated.
When it comes into a situation like the CFMEU example, which is one that's involving some investigations and some very serious accusations, I'd suggest that that's a misstep at this point.
Former Labor strategist Kos Samaras runs the polling group Redbridge. Their analysis shows the Greens stuck on around 12 to 13% of the vote.
We're seeing this in-out sort of dynamic going on with the Greens base, where they're growing exponentially amongst younger Australians, but actually losing some of their traditional base amongst older Australians.
In Sydney, 52-year-old Brendan Winter is planning not to vote Green for the first time in his life.
I think a lot of us who vote Green were always attracted by their environmental policies, and I remain so, but I think the gap has potentially narrowed with the major parties on that particular issue, whereas on a number of other issues, notably including the Middle East, but some other issues as well, they've become quite extreme.
We've taken this position because it's based on humanity, it's based on international law, it's based on principle, and we're going to continue to push for it.
But among younger voters, the Greens' housing policies are winning support.
So I think the one that's prevalent for me right now is being someone who's had to move around a lot is housing stress.
For me, it's very much wanting to not live in a time where housing prices are completely outgrowing wages and with the cost of living crisis as well, with supermarket price gouging.
Former Labor leader Bill Shorten says the Greens aren't a party of government.
Unfortunately, they become quite radical, which means that I think their prospects for looking after about 90% of Australians, unfortunately, is low.
They have to probably be a bit more moderate and negotiate with the government of the day, be it the Labor Party in particular, on issues that they may not agree with.
I think what we're seeing in Australia is more and more people moving to the Greens and to third parties because they want our voices to be heard in Parliament. They want us to push for action on the things that matter to them.